Hi, this is Kevin from Leeds, and on today's helpful tips, we're going to talk about how you would remove or install a dual viewing system. Some people question, why would I want to remove a dual viewing system? Well, there's a couple reasons. This right here is what we call the beam splitter for the dual view system. And if I open it up, there's a prism in there. That prism is constantly taking 50% of your light and sending it out to the second observer. If you do all of your work in fiber optic, you probably don't see a problem with that. But for most of you, fluorescent lights are one of your favorite forms of illumination. And when we steal 50% of that illumination, it means you're not going to be able to use the fluorescent lights for as high a magnification as maybe you could without it. The other thing is that, probably should have measured it, but when we add the dual viewing system, it is going to add, I don't know what that is, a little over an inch in overall height. And you'll see that when we look at the microscope. So, let's just kind of talk about the components. This is what we refer to as the beam splitter. This is our control for our pointer, different colors for our pointer, and then turning the intensity up or down for the pointer. This connects to the, before we go what it connects to, there is a separate power supply for your pointer. I've had some of you call me up and tell me your pointer doesn't work, and we discover someone's either accidentally pulled that cord out, or maybe just over time it's worked its way out a little bit. And I think it's in the same position because there's been several different versions of this Olympus dual viewing system, but that power supply plugs right in on the right side of it. So this part would be facing forward, and that power supply is going in on the right side. Next we have the optical arm of the dual view. And again, you'll see when I take it apart, but this ring right here connects it to the beam splitter. And then it has a mount on this end, which is where our photo tube and our binoc are going to connect. Just a couple other small components. This is the support arm that mounts to your microscope. Ultimately, it's going to go to the back of the bridge and going to be the support for this long optical arm of the dual viewing system. And then this knob is going to come up through the bracket and connect to that optical tube. Again, some of this will make more sense when you see me actually taking it off. One of the things I like you to see is that there's a through hole in here. And when we come to tighten or loosen that, we can put an Allen wrench, in this case a screwdriver, something that gives me a lever arm that will allow me to tighten this unit up, maybe a little tighter than I would be able to get by hand. Sorry to keep turning my back to you. Finally, there's going to be an extra binocular body and eyepieces that come as part of that dual view kit. Okay? So those are kind of all the components to it. There's a small collection of tools that you're going to want to have on hand. And hopefully you can see that on the camera here if I step back. The tools that are required are a 3mm Allen wrench. And you should all have one of those. That actually is shortened on a dual view system so that we can get underneath that beam splitter and store it right here in the back of the microscope. This was a lever arm or a 7/32 Allen wrench will fit. This is for tightening that knob up. And then I grabbed an extra 3mm wrench just to be safe. And then you're going to see that there's two more. The 5/64 of an inch Allen wrench and the 1/8 Allen wrench are going to be used to loosen the set screws that hold either the top of the bracket together or to mount the whole bracket on the back of the microscope. With those tools in hand, we're going to come over to our microscope. You're going to see everything set up here. Again, you can see how this adds some height to it. If you've got a system with a tilting binoc like this, we actually make up for some of that loss or that height by moving the photo tube out to the side here. But again, as long as this is here, it's going to take 50% of your light. Know that we do a custom modification to this so that you can pull that prism out, but 99% of the units we sell have this fixed 50% prism in it. So I'm going to go through taking these components apart. There are a couple other videos that we've done that I'll ask Margaret to put a reference into this video for, and the main one is going to be for aligning your dividing line, your knife edge. And it also talks about how these particular components mount. But for the moment, I'm going to walk you through this. We take our 3mm wrench, and on the right side of the dual viewing system, there's a little channel cut here. And I'm holding on to the binoc now. I don't want to drop it. And I loosen the set screw that's securing this to the microscope. And then you might have to loosen it a little more. In case you didn't catch that, I tried to take it out and it didn't want to come. Basically, this tucks in under two fixed positions on the dovetail, if I can get that right, and then mounts with the set screw here. So we're going to take that off, hold it upright. We don't want to drop those eyepieces. If you're worried about dropping the eyepieces, pull them out first. Just a quick extra step. Excuse me, I'm going to set this down over here. Next, I've got to take off my second binocular body here. So the same thing. There's a set screw on the right side. I'm holding the binoc before I even begin to loosen. And once it's loose enough, I'll be able to lift up and pull that binoc out. The final item here is the photo tube. And I'm going to loosen that as well. But I missed one of my steps. That's why we're doing this video for you. If I tried to take this photo tube off, the camera is still connected to the microscope. And even though I pre-planned for that, I kind of forgot about it. So I've got two options here. One option, and maybe the easiest, is there's little set screws or securing screws up here. And I disconnect the cable. One of the other things you'll note that I put over there, and maybe we don't need to flip over there right now, but was a wire cutters. Depending on who set up your microscope or when it was set up, a lot of us like to secure this cable so it's not getting stressed. And it's just being held on here with a little electrical tie wrap. And that's what I've used that wire cutters for. Now, there's no cords hanging onto my camera, and I'm going to take my camera and my photo tube off as one piece. Again, I'm loosening that side until I'm able to lift, and I take that whole mechanism off and I set it down right here. There's two possibilities. I showed you the more complicated one today, and that's taking off the binocular body and the photo tube as two separate units. Somewhere probably about 10 years ago, Olympus started providing a trinocular body that tilted. So what it gave us was that ergonomic tilt, and it gave us a photo port all in one unit. So they come off the same way. In one case, you'll be taking off the binoc and then what we call the photo tube. In the case of the trinocular, they'll all come off together. So now I'm down to what are really the unique dual viewing components here. In this case, I'm going to grab that 7/32 Allen wrench, and what I want to do is find the hole in my knob that secures the optical arm to the microscope, and I'm just going to use this lever arm to help me loosen that item. Some of you with Gorilla Grip, you may not need the wrench, that's fine. You can see this one's a little bit older. I think to make access easier over time, we lengthened this piece a little bit, but they're both doing the same thing. They're securing the optical arm to the support bracket back here. The next item we're going to take off is going to actually be the optical tube here. And the optical tube is secured with a knurled band here. Okay, once that's loose, it simply slides out. So there again, that's the, can you see that? I'll hold it up. That's the band that I was loosening, and that's what's fitting onto the threads in the beam splitter block right here and optically connecting those all together. Again, you want to make sure you got some table space cleaned and set aside so that you are able to put all these items someplace safely when you're taking them off. And then the final component is the beam splitter. But just like the camera, I want to make sure I've got all my cables disconnected before I try to take this beam splitter off. And in this case, there's that power cord we talked about that plugs into the right side. Loosen that front set screw, and the beam splitter will come off as one item. In this case, again, we have the photo tube in the binocular arrangement. Sorry, sometimes I'm a little out of order here. I'm not going to take the time in this video to have you guys watch me take this bracket off. There's a series of 6 button head cap screws here. Those should be that 1/8 inch Allen wrench. That'll take the whole bracket off. And you can leave the bracket as a single piece. If for packing reasons, take up less space, you could also use the 5/64 Allen wrench and take these other 6 button head screws off and take that off. If you think you're going to be putting the dual viewing on at some time in the near future again, there's no reason you need to take that bracket off, which is actually what I was going to do. Just leave that bracket on here. Here's that 3mm Allen wrench. And again, that's living in this black block that supports your whole microscope on the front of the column. On a regular LCF3, it's pretty long, but when we put the dual viewing unit on, the beam splitter actually hangs over the back of the microscope. So we shorten this guy up so you can still reach in there and get it out underneath the beam splitter. At any rate, we're trying to get it back. We've got the dual viewing off. Want to set it back up for the primary viewer. To do that, we need to add this photo tube back in here. Then I'm going to grab one of my 2 tilting binocs that I got sitting so nice and safe over on the table there. And again, this one sort of mounts in a sideways fashion. We tuck that dovetail underneath there, and we tighten up. You'll note that I don't really tighten and torque on that hard. If someone's going to bump into your binoc, I'd rather have it go out of position, if you will, than to have somebody break it. Now, for actually setting up your dividing lines, again, I referenced it earlier on in the video. Margaret's going to attach a note with a link to our video specifically on how to set your binoc and your camera dividing lines up. So, hopefully that covers it for you. If we were installing a system, we would just reverse that whole process there, if you will. You would first of all mount the bracket, then we would mount the beam splitter, then we would put on the optical tube and secure it. So you can run the procedure we just did for taking it off in reverse, and you will be able to install it. As always, whenever you're working on your microscope, even if you're not working on it, you're thinking about working on it. If you got questions, if you got a problem with something, we at Leeds are here to help. Just give us a call. We'd be more than happy to walk you through whatever it is that you need to do and keep you up and operating. Thanks for your time, and tune in to us next week.